We're going to start with Heather and Matthew, the alternative story, some might say, with potential guest appearance by someone in a ladybird outfit, but more of that anon. Let me hand over to you two for the story. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having my daughter along today. There was no childcare, so this is the reality. We wanted to say yes, this was the date. How dare Matthew's parents be enjoying retirement on a cruise? So here we are with a 3-foot tall ladybug, as you do. This is what I do. I work for a company called TMP. We're a talent solutions business. And so we're an agency. So what we do is we support employers that are looking to engage and recruit and then continue to engage their workforce, which means that my client base is a lot of employers who are trying to get it right and then shout about how right they're getting it to get more people to want to come. So my bit of that is I'm a communications agency creative director. So that's quite a fun, exciting job. I look after the creative team, the tech team, the media team, the social team, and the project managers. So I've got a team of about, I think we're up to 36 now. So I'm here to talk to you as a woman, as a mother, and as a manager, and also as a business leader. So when we're talking about all these different perspectives on making it work, I've got empathy moving in a lot of directions around this topic of flexible working. And I want to tell you, both as a mother and as a manager, that we kind of make it a feat of bravery for people to make it work as a family and stay in the workforce, because the structures are just still too rigid. If I take it to a personal level, Sheryl Sandberg wrote Lean In 2013, and that was all, you probably all know it. It gets endlessly referenced at conferences and stuff. And it was all about women keeping their foot on the accelerator as career women. Now, I was born in 77. I hadn't considered that there was any other direction to lean except in, if you want to have a job and you're really serious about advancing. You know, in the way I was raised, I just thought that all you had to do was just lean in way, way, way in. So for me, it was career first. And the sad truth, I love my daughter, but before I knew her, I wouldn't have become a parent at all if I didn't know that I had the seniority and the support to do it from a position of power. I've got a power base and I took a long time to build it up, but a lot of people who are trying to get flexibility for themselves and have a normal life, a balanced life, are not doing it from a position of power. So it's a bit of a plea for them now that I've got there. It took me a long time to get to a place where I felt truly confident to be able to enter into parenthood. So my daughter was born 3 months before my 39th birthday, which is biologically risky, but we did it. So January 2016, so she was born in January and I went back to work in February, the following month, 2 days a week. And then at the beginning of April, when she was just over 3 months old, I went back to work full-time. And at TMP, in my type of role, full-time means full-time and then some, really. We're a very flexible company, but you do put in a lot of hours if you're in the leadership. So she was this small when I started being away from her 5 days a week, 8 to 6. She was also exclusively breastfed until she was 6 months old, but I was working full time, so you could do the maths on that. I'd never worked with or even known another woman who had expressed in the workplace. So I had to get a book, and the book came from the USA because that's where people tend to work like this, go back straight to work because they have fewer rights really than we do. So I got that book and I had to figure out how to get my business to set up a space for me. But again, luckily I was in the leadership, so I felt like I could walk in the door and say, give me a space, I need one. And because of my position in the business, they would do it. And I would be doing it not just for myself, but for everyone. And now I get to talk about it. So hopefully we're going to amplify that act of bravery on my part, because I was scared to go to work and talk about my boobs. Who wants to do that? Not me. So I scheduled in my sessions twice a day at times when I could do calls or I could do work that was on my own in a room. But I had to do a lot of travel too. My job means that I do. So there I am expressing on a train with my little cover over me. And there I am a little less comfortably expressing in a disabled loo because that's all that I could find. And so I was preparing somebody's lunch on my lap on the floor with a hand dryer going on and off over my head periodically, which is not great for my hairdo, probably. I had to, at one point, I had to go and fly to do a new business pitch, and I brought ice packs in my bag to keep my express milk cool overnight to get back to my daughter. I had to say to my colleagues, that's great, you want to do a pitch rehearsal at that time in the morning. Actually, it needs to be either a lot earlier or a lot later, because that's when I express. Again, talking about my boobs with my colleagues, but because it's not, the dialogue isn't out there, there's no shorthand for it, I have to just say, this is what I need to do. And then coming back into London and doing milk handoffs with Matthew so that I could go to a women's networking event. So I turned up in Farringdon, off my train from Manchester, here's the milk, get her on the boob for my first glass of wine, and then send her and the milk home with Matthew so that I can mentor other women, because damn it, if I'm going to do something this hard, then I want everyone to benefit, not just me. So, ooh, that's very brave. Yeah, sure, that's brave. So this is what I get. And I'm not offended by it, but I'm really uncomfortable about this just because of my story, where I have a lot of help as well. I get heroized, or I get simplified to a piece of graphic art. It's just kind of, it's not really deep enough. We're multifaceted people, so it doesn't really work for me. I couldn't do all this stuff that I'm doing without so much help at work and at home too. And I have a great kid. And I also don't get to do it without any guilt, because that's heavy to carry. You get the guilt, and you get hassle, and you feel like there's days when you feel like you're failing as a parent as well as failing at work, because you're trying to do so much. But I'm not a traditional mom. I was never going to be. I knew I couldn't fit into the mold that society had prepared for me. I'm a career woman. My household has financial imperatives. I know that I'm going to carry those imperatives. It was clear for us. Matthew will tell you more. But we can't, I managed to do this, but we can't expect everyone to be some kind of Wonder Woman like this. What I'm doing is just about sustainable for me on a good day, but it's not sustainable for just everyone. If this is what you have to do to be in the workforce, then of course a lot of people are going to opt out of this. The average woman doesn't want to walk out on a 3-month-old who looks like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. We shouldn't have to be superhuman just to get by. So I have a really interesting question that I'm pondering, and I don't think I know the answer to it, but did I go out and do what I wanted because I'm so driven? Or did I decide to want what I had to do? I don't know. Maybe I'll figure it out as I ponder it for the next 20 years, but I was raised to think that was my only option. And I think happy people decide to like what they have. So I don't know, but I know I want more options for my daughter when she gets bigger. So like I said, I wouldn't have become a parent if I didn't have a plan for staying in the workforce. And this number is part of the reason why. Only 11% of creative directors globally are female. So you don't need any strikes against you. You don't need to be the fiddly employee. And if you want to put exec in front of the title like I have, it's even less. So I'm aware of my context as a business leader, that I had aspirations to go further, and I wanted to make sure that my career was never stunted. I've had 2 promotions since the birth of my daughter, and my company is very progressive. They're good about flexible working. But if you want to look at days of weeks worked, there are some people who go down in TMP to fewer days, but no one in the organization at my level or higher works fewer than 5 days a week. So I work with wonderful people, but then again, even with that level of confidence, do I want to be the one to put my hand up and go, I'd like to drop down? I don't think I would. And also, I probably would be bored with that last day. So who knows? But it's a reality in so many businesses at leadership level and other types of roles too. So I never even considered timeout. I never even considered going out for fewer than 5 days a week, not for 1 minute. I didn't even let my mind go there. And I think no matter who you are, there's always the thought that you might be penalized for taking time out. And maybe that's the reason for this number, which is even smaller. And that is the Department for Business estimate of the father's take-up of shared parental leave, that it could be as low as 2%, which I think is tragic for men and for women both. And I can come up with some ideas. And actually, Louise had lots of ideas about why that could be, that are academic too and well-researched. But in my view, society thinks that boys should be tough and not nurturing. We've got the gender pay gap, which probably sends the higher earner back to work, and that's usually probably the guys. But why would I stand here with a mic when there's a dad right here who can tell you for himself what his experience has been since the birth of our daughter?
Are you going to join in? No, you're going to stay there. Okay. Oh. Oh, that one. Okay, sorry. Prior to taking up full-time parenthood, I was a journalist. Specifically, I was a sub-editor for titles such as The Register, which is a tech website, Metal Bulletin, which is a specialist publication, and also for BBC Future. I love my job, but editorial is relatively poorly paid because nobody wants to pay for it anymore. It's rarely secure. There's a lot of short-term contracts and such, and it's seemingly shrinking all the time. There's a lot of people being laid off. I was working on a short-term contract before Finch was born, and when it ran out, we decided that I wouldn't try and find another one, and that instead I would stay at home and I would look after Heather, and then subsequently I would look after the baby. I love my job. One day I want to go back. One day I'd like to go back, and I can't pretend I don't miss it, but this is what I do now. This is my permanent full-time position. I have another job title now, toddler valet. Other people might call themselves stay-at-home fathers, or homemakers, or housewives and husbands, but I'm a toddler valet. I do my best to inform and guide, meet the needs of my young charge, who's stealing the show right now, while attempting to divert her occasionally rash, unwise, and anarchic tendencies. Heather had Wonder Woman as her image, which she rejects. She doesn't feel that represents her at all. But this is my one. This is how I see myself. We don't stay at home. I'm not a stay-at-home parent. We go out and we watch planes land at City Airport. We visit playgrounds. We go and look at bunnies and other animals. We visit steam railways, not always successfully because they tend to break down a lot. We visited the Bluebell Railway 3 times and it broke down every time. She doesn't get to go on as many steam rails as I'd like. I don't know whether this is the universe telling me that little girls shouldn't go on steam railways, but I'd like to think the universe is a little bit more evolved than that. There are issues to be faced by fathers dealing with small children. This was from a conference we went to last year where me and Finch attended in a purely supporting capacity rather than actually speaking. Most buildings modern buildings anyway, are equipped to deal with changing, looking after kids, but not all of them. Pubs especially, because a lot of them are quite old, don't have those facilities, which makes socializing, meeting up with people somewhat difficult. There are other issues. When we went to our NCT group, we were given out, at one point, we were given out laminated cards to do with our sort of future role in the relationship. All the men got given going back to work cards. All the women got given staying at home looking after kid cards. Extraordinary really for something like NCT, which is supposed to be a sort of quite a progressive organization. We actually had to stand up and say, that's not happening with us. Heather's going back, I'm staying at home. There's also a lack of community for male parents. You can meet up with other mothers especially, but I'm a man, they're women, we don't always have the same interests. I don't necessarily have a peer group that I can sort of discuss things with. There's a lot of talking about kids. I'm not really necessarily that interested in kids other than my own. You know, I'm glad other people have got kids and they're great, but you know, I'm not that, I don't care how they're doing really. I do, obviously I want them to do well. Our choice for me to go back was primarily financial. As Heather said, as I said, I'm a journalist. The job security in that profession, a lot of temporary working, a lot of working from home in a bad way, because a lot of places don't have permanent offices anymore. I was comparatively well paid for what I did, because I had a reasonable amount of experience. But even so, Heather out-earned me by a considerable margin. And as a result of that, when we did the maths, it was obvious that it would be better for me to stay at home rather than Heather. I could have gone back to work, but it would have barely paid for the full-term childcare that we would have needed. We were lucky because Heather's wage was enough for us to do that. But if you think about how it plays out if the two parents have got a much more similar wage, or if they earn in total less than we did, it's going to be a very difficult decision for a lot of parents to actually make any kind of change. And you're going to be relying on outside networks, parents, grandparents, and that's not always, for obvious reasons, something you can rely on. Other people sometimes find it difficult to understand the choice for me to look after a child. Some think it's unmasculine. I don't know. It's kind of difficult to be unmasculine when your own child is right there. But I made that. Others assume I'm unemployed and I'm only doing this until I get another job. Again, with the financial imperatives, that's understandable, but not in our case. But I'm incredibly fortunate, and I know that. That's Finch pretending to be one of the Ramones. In the current environment, very few men get to experience what I do, which is watch and guide our child as she develops into a human being with her own personality and thoughts, which she is expressing quite loudly at the moment. Society still has a problem accepting the idea of men doing this. They see a man looking after a child and assume he is a manny or a male nanny, implying that a man would only do this if he was getting paid for it. I used to play bass in a band, so if you call me Manny, I'm more than happy with that. He was better than I was. That's Manny from the Stone Roses, the chap on the left there. We can do better than this. I think society needs to accept the fact that men can take the role of carer, and we need to be able to develop that so that both men and women can feel free to move on. Thank you.
Embedding some of the stuff we heard earlier rather than repeating it. But I do want to talk about creating win-wins in your businesses, because why do we get up here and open our hearts about our private life? Because we want to motivate people to do the right thing. But I did say I have a lot of hats on, and I'm a businesswoman, and businesses, people only have jobs when businesses thrive. So we have to get out of the mindset of we're offering flexible working as a business benefit, or it's a charity, or it's just because we're nice. We have to think about the fact that we can actually create win-wins. It's compromise, making it work both sides. And I can't give you a magic wand and go, here's a top 10 things you need to do to be flexible, because it is different for every business that has different deliverables. But we wanted to give you 3 areas of exploration so that you can go back and meditate on what's possible in your workplace. So these are space, time, and measurement. So you know your business, you know what's movable and what's not. And that's going to be different by industry, by role. And sometimes it varies inside an organization. At TMP, different people can do different things because of what we're delivering. Some people can work from home. Some people find that more difficult. Flexible hours, some people find more difficult. So you need to go back to blank sheet business planning and look at everything you're doing and ask yourself, well, why are we doing it that way? Do we have to do it that way? Is there another way to do it? And if you look at these 3 areas, I think, with a truly open mind, and I mean seriously rip up the brief and ask yourself why you're doing it, then you might start to identify and tease out areas of flexibility that could work to everybody's advantage. And then you get the talent you need, and people get a work style that fits their lives. So let's just look at them quickly one by one. Space. Home working is one of the bigger areas of flexibility with TMP. So I personally get 2 hours back that I can be working if I don't commute. So thank you. And I will give that to my employer. In fact, I'll probably work a little bit more the other end too, because I ain't got to shower and put makeup on. So I just, I'm doing my work in my little yoga pants. So, but people have been alluding to this too. The cost of office space, according to Instant Offices, the average desk space in the West End now costs £732 a month. So you multiply that by a workforce, this could be a serious expense. 100 employees would put you close to £1 million a year before you even furnish the place. And you wanted to make a point about trust.
Yeah, I used to work as a tech journalist, as I said. The 2 big myths that we used to deal with in stories all the time is the idea of the paperless office and the idea of home working. We have the technology to do both. We could do both tomorrow if we decided to do that. The trouble is, employers don't trust the technology to hold their documents for paperless working, and they don't trust the people for home working. And if you don't trust the people, why are you employing them? Why would you do that? It's
QED.
extraordinary.
You don't trust him to work, check your assessment methods. Then there's time. So you don't have to offer, you want to be flexible. What does that mean? It's very intimidating. You don't have to offer every element of flexible working that some company does that you saw on BuzzFeed that has the best office and a swing in their office, right? You can do little bits as you can that make sense for you. So some people just want a flexible start or a finish. So this might even mean actually that your business could cover more hours. So you could have core hours where you have to collaborate, and then there could be flex on either side that might actually mean that if you've got clients, if you've got customers, you actually end up better off for coverage for them while still maintaining the idea that people collaborate in person. And you do a little thing like this, and sometimes people will stay with an employer for those sorts of things. So then you don't have to re-recruit in a constricting talent market, which is going to constrict further. People really appreciate this stuff. So this Instagram post here is from one of our digital consultants. And he tagged our business in his Instagram post there and said, hat tip to TMP Worldwide for flexible working options, which allows me to walk the little man to school on days like this. I love it. Okay, thank you very much. I also love it too because he's an Adobe conference speaker. Like he's going to Las Vegas pretty soon to talk. So he's got a lot of followers. So the shout out's like good for my amplification. But all we did was let him start work at 9:45, like one day a week when his wife has to do something, and we get this from it. Okay. I mean, it's not even, we're getting big appreciation and big exposure for something that's not even a big thing to be able to give. But why am I winning by doing only that? Because everybody else is doing so little. It's scary. And nearly finally, measurement. What are you measuring in your business? Are you measuring face time or outcomes? And what do you really want to get? What makes you make money? The fact that people are in a chair for a long time, or the fact that they're getting things done? Because here's what you get by measuring time. Now, this is not our statistics. This is US labor statistics, but I can't imagine it's going to be any different, really. People are people. Their research suggests that in an 8-hour day, the average worker is only productive for 2 hours and 53 minutes. See if you think it's true in your gut. 40 minutes discussing non-work related things with coworkers. 7 minutes making food in the office, 44 minutes checking social media, and lots of other things that people do besides working. So that's what you get for your 8 hours. You get, according to the stats, an average of 2 hours and 53 minutes of productivity. Well done. I prefer to measure outcomes. So my teams have tasks. Did you get that task done by the deadline? Is it to a good standard? Did you take a reasonable time frame to get it done? I really don't mind where they do it. If they need to collaborate in person, they know that. I don't have to tell them. They can work out how they're going to collaborate in person. But it's measuring the things that will drive my business. And my business isn't driven by 8 hours in the office. It's not the world that we live in anymore. And why do we have time shifts anyway? So I'm not going to bore you with all a big history lesson, but after the first industrial revolution, we had 10 to 16 hour work days, and that was normal because factories, they thought they needed to run 24/7. 100 years later, Henry Ford adopted the 8-8-8 day for his factories. So that was 8 hours work, 8 hours leisure, 8 hours sleep. And guess what? People turned out to be more productive. Less time working, but they were more productive. That's data. That's somebody who's measuring outcomes rather than face time a long time ago. I mean, the Davos theme was the fourth industrial revolution. If we haven't got to the point where we can maybe do better than Henry Ford, then I should be a bit worried. So, the takeaway. I think you need to take people, we employ human people, and we need to take them as a package with everything they are, all the good things and all the things that we have to accommodate to. And if you can do that, then my findings as a manager is just that they will give you everything they've got. They will give you all the passion, and they will bring their whole selves to work, and you can only benefit. And just a couple of examples of this in action. You know, a client asks us to go to Manchester Pride with them on a bank holiday weekend. And I think, oh man, my daughter's only 8 months old. I don't want to leave her behind for a whole bank holiday. And I think, I'll just ask if she can come. Yeah, sure, she can come. Great. So we do that as a family. Or someone in my team who needs to go home a little bit early, leave work a little bit early on a Thursday to go to require practice. So we encourage that, and we say, oh, when are you performing? And we get her to invite the whole team to her Christmas performance. And a lot of people go. And then you know what? They've got something to talk to each other over, and you're starting to form friendships at work. And that's the glue that keeps people engaged and makes them want to come to work. your infant is missing you at home while she's still breastfeeding and your partner's at home tearing his hair out, do a 10-minute Skype. Then realize you're in the middle of the office and feel embarrassed for 10 seconds until people start coming up to you and say, you know what? You did that Skype with your daughter and it gave us all permission to be human at work. So I'm always conscious that as someone who's in a leadership position, I'm setting a tone and setting a standard for people, and it needs to be a tone that's human. I think this stuff creates engagement. Out of engagement, you get loyalty, you get long service, and you get better productivity as well. Everyone wins.
That was such an honest presentation, and so much of it seems like common sense, you know, and the compassion that's there with that. And if people like you were not doing this now, then it wouldn't start to become the norm. So I'm sure that everybody would congratulate on telling us about your story and doing what you're doing. We have a moment to take a few questions. Does anybody have questions for Matthew and Heather? Yes, sir, since you put your hand up first. We'll just get the microphone to you so our friends online can hear on Let's All Flex Together Day.
Hi, my name is Peter Thompson. Interesting that you seem to have to work very long hours yourself as a senior member of the management team of your organization. Yet we've been hearing earlier that one of the barriers to flexible working for those that want to work part-time is this perception that to get on in your career, you have to be a full-time worker. Is your organization trying to address that one, or do you just accept that that's a fact of life?
We are trying to address it. We're not there yet as a culture, and I think every business will go, we're good in that area, but we need improvement in this other area. I'm campaigning for flexible working externally as well as internally. We've got some populations that have lots of time flexibility during the working day. They can work fewer days a week. We've got job shares. People can work from home. So there's lots of flexibility around the place. I just think at the senior level, it's trickier. Part of the reason I'm so present is because I, as a leader, want to be there for my people. However, I don't mean to malign what happens at a leadership level. My flexibility comes around working from where I need to. And if I need to take a day to work at home, I can do that easily. I haven't got to ask any permission from anyone or answer to anyone. And I think everybody who works in a leadership role, at least in my organization, would feel the same. There's no stigma. We've opened up the culture so much that there's no stigma around the idea that you're not in that day, you're working from home. You can talk about that openly. So no, yes, I work probably more hours than full time. I know I do actually, but I do a lot of it under my own terms. So I don't know what the answer is. We did have a couple of team leads who were in a job share, and it was quite a successful job share. So, we're working at it in little tiny bits, but I'm not sure we have the answer 100% around how you do flexibility plus leadership, because I want to be there for my team. It's kind of my choice in a way.
We have time probably for one more question if anyone has one. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm just interested that you've made the choice of one or other of you having a career rather than, you both sort of choosing a bit of flexible working and working together so you both have that career. Just an observation there.
From my perspective, as I said earlier, the way that editorial, my particular industry is working, it's unreliable anyway. And we looked at it and thought, Heather's career is stable, well paid, whereas mine is I can park it. I can park it for however many years I need to and then come back to it. As a result of that, it's kind of the maths just makes sense. I couldn't rely on being able to get any work in the first place because of the way that the industry works.
Okay. We appreciate your time today. A great example of Let's All Flex Together. So Heather, Matthew and Finch.
That way.
She's gone.
She's got far greater things to get on with, I'm sure. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to swap our panels. Do you want to come on?